That's on the BBC's News at 10 with Fiona Bruce. Can you help? Now on BBC One, this month's Crimewatch.
A fatal beating in front of thousands of festival goers.
His mouth was blue and his eyes were wide open. I was just screaming to get ambulance or to get some help.
Holiday scams, the crooks leaving you stranded.
You know, if you're mugged in the high street, you have the bruises to show it. When it's done by fraud, you have no bruises.
The mystery of the body washed up on a Cornish beach.
Suspicious by the very nature of the conditions he was found in. Why would you have a sock in your mouth?
And the real-life search for the Holy Grail. Catching the criminals, protecting the public. This is Crimewatch. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We are live for the next hour with this month's latest crime investigations, news and appeals. There are dozens of detectives in the studio right now, all hoping that you can crack their cases.
I've also got my latest collection of faces, people wanted for GBH, drug dealing and murder. And some incredible CCTV, including this master of disguise, robbing a shop with a plastic bag on his head.
And I'll have the exclusive inside story of how counter-terrorism officers caught a lone wolf setting off bombs across the West Midlands.
The absolute pressure on us there is to put a name to the bomber and actually arrest him. Let's get him off the streets before any more bombs are set.
Now, as we approach the end of July, we're in the middle of the summer festival season. Just last month, a group of 5 friends headed to the Parklife Weekender in Manchester, an event that is attended by around about 70,000 people each and every day. But what should have been a highlight of their summer went horribly wrong, and it all happened in front of thousands of witnesses.
We've still not come to terms with it. That Robert won't come walking through the door with his jokes and with his warmth and his laughter.
I was the bigger brother. He used to follow me wherever I went. He's like, I've had 50% of me removed.
He was just a really cool guy, and I'm really, really lucky and proud that he was my brother.
We were pretty much inseparable since the day we met. He was my best friend. He really was. And he never let me down.
On Saturday, the 7th of June, Robert and his girlfriend Gemma met up with 3 of their friends. They were all going to the Parklife Weekender music festival in Manchester.
He loved his guitar. Everything was based around music and making sure that when we went out it was, you know, a good lineup. We'd been to Parklife the year before, but he had gone out and got the tickets and came home and told me that he had a surprise for me.
He was kind, very funny. He loved life.
Wherever he was, he just, everybody would smile.
He's the youngest, but he was such a fab uncle. He was the best.
It was like raining and then the sun came out as soon as we got there, really. Danced, bought some drinks. We just sat there and spoke to people and had pictures taken with them. Just had a lovely time together, just talking. And then went to watch the end of Rudimental. After that, we were just waiting for Snoop Dogg to come on. There was an inflatable doll. It got chucked over once and then chucked back over. And then the second time, it hit me, covered me in mud. And that's when Rob turned around.
Your mum, what are you doing?
He actually said he didn't want any trouble. And that's when they've turned into a scuffle. I was trying to get Rob away. He's 6'3", I'm 5'2", so I couldn't really do a lot. And that's when I got knocked over. And then it was only within seconds that he came down next to me.
Robert! Somebody help me!
He wasn't breathing. His mouth was blue and his eyes were wide open.
Robert! Please!
I was just screaming to get ambulance or to get some help. Luckily there was 2 trained nurses on the scene. Someone just said to me, "We've got him back." The next thing I knew, he was just apologising to me. He was dazed, you know. But then you think, because people are telling you that he's all right, and it was far from it, really.
Robert was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, but his condition quickly deteriorated. He was now fighting for his life.
We immediately got to the hospital and Robert was in an induced coma. And we all prayed and prayed.
He was just lying on a bed with lots of tubes and machines hooked up to him.
It was a matter of minute by minute of survival, really, rather than what's he going to be like the next day. Injuries were just too bad for him to recover.
They tried everything for my little brother. And then we made a decision as a family for him to donate some of his vital organs to save other people's lives, which I know that's what Bobby would have chosen.
The attack, it was so severe that sadly he just lost his life, he just lost the fight.
I'm facing a future that's very dark, lonely, and without any hope. And someone has taken that away from me and taken that away from him, all of his dreams, all of his ambition.
One question that we wanted to ask is why. He hadn't gone to look for trouble. He'd gone simply because of his love of music.
Bobby would have gone and handed himself in if the shoe was on the other foot. And to me that takes guts, and I would class this lad now as a coward.
You come forward and you tell my little girl and my nieces and my nephews where's their uncle gone and why he's gone.
This guy didn't come to the festival to kill anyone. But when someone says they don't want any trouble, and then he punches someone with so much force and violence to do some serious damage, whether he wanted to or not, he'd killed someone.
Why, his family are asking, why indeed? Detective Inspector Richard Eales from Greater Manchester Police is here. He's leading the team and the investigation. Thanks for joining us, Richard. I have to say, tragically, this is something that we see all too often here on Crimewatch, this sort of fight.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that this was an altercation between the two of them and not completely one-sided. However, given the fact that this person left the scene and has failed to contact us, only makes matters worse for him. We are urging him to come forward. I believe we will find him. It's only a matter of time.
Would it be fair to say that you have a pretty clear picture of the suspect thus far?
Yes, that's correct. He's described as mixed race, 6 foot 6'1", He had a muscular build and he was in his mid-20s. He had short dark hair which was shaved at the sides. He was wearing a dark coloured jacket and shorts. We also believe he was in company with a girl who had shoulder-length blonde hair, possibly wearing a pink top.
Now, as I mentioned, 70,000 people each day at this really popular festival. Many of those people taking footage with their phones, taking stills photographs too. It'd be useful to let people know that they can download their footage onto your website. In fact, the email address to do that is on the screen now, and we would urge people tonight to do that. Any little piece of information visually might be very useful to you. As of right now, there are people that you certainly want to trace as potentially very helpful witnesses. Tell me about them.
Yes, we've had some additional images that we have of people that we know that were stood next to Robert and Gemma at the time of the incident, and they may have crucial information and we need them to come forward to help us.
It is also worth mentioning to people watching tonight that there are rewards, substantial rewards involved here.
Yes, that's correct. The event organisers have pledged £20,000 and also Crime Stoppers this evening have pledged a further £3,000 leading to the arrest and conviction.
OK, Detective Inspector Richard Eales, thanks very much for now. You saw the impact right there that Robert's death has had on his family. There are undoubtedly, I would think, people watching tonight who can help his family find the answers that they are looking for. If you are one of those people, please do call the studio now. Let me give you the number. It's 0500 600 600.
Time for some crimes caught on camera now, starting with a violent robbery in London earlier this year. A train pulls into East Acton tube station late on a Monday night in February. A woman gets off and walks down the platform. A man in a dark jacket and jeans also leaves the train. He seems quite interested in his fellow passenger and sets off after her. He follows her through the station, seeming to hang back as she makes her way toward the exit. As she leaves, he's there again, just moments later. Outside the station, the woman heads for home. And you guessed it, just a few seconds behind is the man from the train. Round the corner, he rushes up behind her and violently pushes her to the ground. The pair grapple for a while, with the victim being punched and thrown to the floor, where she's kicked in the face. He eventually made off with her bag. The victim was badly injured and lost 3 teeth in the attack. This is the man responsible. Who is he? It's opening time at the Lloyds Bank in Stokenchurch in Buckinghamshire on the Monday morning last December. A white transit van pulls up as 2 female members of staff who are carrying boxes of Christmas decorations arrive for work. As they walk in, 2 men bundle them into the branch. Inside, the men, one of whom seems to think he's Batman, threaten the terrified women and force them to open the back office. While behind the counter, Batman and his mate continue to shout at the women, slapping them and forcing them to unlock the safe. While they fill their bags with cash, a 3rd member of staff arrives. He too is assaulted and manhandled into the office. Eventually, the dastardly duo leave after grabbing tens of thousands of pounds. They make off in a stolen black VW Golf which had parked up outside. Hardly the Batmobile. Now it's your turn to be a superhero. We need you to name this Robin Batman tonight. If you need another look, all the CCTV is on the website. Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help. Calls are free from most landlines. Some networks and mobile operators will charge.
Most of us manage to pack our bags and get away for a break at some point during the year, and now with the school holidays upon us, Martin has been investigating the ways that a growing number of fraudsters are conning innocent holidaymakers out of their hard-earned cash.
Holidays. For most, a chance to relax and unwind. But for a growing number of holidaymakers, that's not necessarily the case. Fraudsters pocketed around £7 million from unsuspecting travellers last year. Fake websites, false advertising, phone and email scams left people stranded, either with no flights or with nowhere to stay. Suzette Mugliston fell victim to one fraudster when booking a caravan holiday in Porthcawl in South Wales for herself and her grandchildren.
I love my grandchildren, I love spending time with them. They really are the love of my life. We'd had in the family, a rough couple of years, so I just thought we need a break, we need a holiday.
As money was tight, she went online to try to find a bargain.
Caravan holidays are expensive. So when I seen this one, I just thought, oh, I can't not email this person. And so I went for it.
So she paid in full and was sent the details of the caravan's location. But when the family got to the site, they couldn't find it.
We went round, just kept going round and round, stopping at empty caravans thinking, is this the one, is this the one?
The caravan didn't exist.
I just burst into tears. I didn't know what to do. I had 4 of my grandchildren waiting outside the caravan expecting to go in. I had to go back and tell him it wasn't theirs. We were going to have to go home.
In all, Suzette lost nearly £300, having already transferred the money into the fraudster's account.
You look back and you think, oh, how could I have believed a holiday would have been that cheap? But at the time, I think I was a little bit blinkered as well, because I was just desperate to take the children away. You know, and I just fell for it, and I suppose that's how they prey on the gullible, or the needy.
Last year, Jessica Scott, the woman responsible for the family's heartache and that of other victims, was sentenced to 8 months in prison for fraud and ordered to pay more than £2,500 in compensation. Holiday fraud is a growing problem, and with half of us now booking online, experts say it's only going to get worse.
Well, the scale of holiday fraud is significant. Around 50% of the reports made last year were either accommodation fraud or flight ticket fraud.
How are the fraudsters doing this?
Accommodation fraud is when they're able to set up fake websites that look genuine, then engaging with members of the public, making false representations and taking hard-earned money. And flight ticket is using fraudulent credit cards to make bookings, or rogue travel agents saying that you've got your flights, but actually there are no flights. The tickets aren't worth the paper they're written on.
Tim Kelleher and his wife Diane were conned when organising a trip to Cork for themselves and 23 friends.
It's a fantastic event, so much so we've been going for over 20 years. I was really busy at work, and so I decided to use a guy that we knew of to do the booking for us.
The group gave the agent around £6,500 for flights and accommodation. The flights were confirmed by the airline, but when Tim called the hotel, he was in for a nasty surprise.
It was at that point I got the shock of my life when they said, well, we don't have a reservation for you.
The agent had pocketed the group's cash, leaving Tim to foot the €2,000 hotel bill.
We couldn't let our friends down and just say, well, there's a hiccup and you need to pay it again. I felt that the priority was to reinstate the booking. It's like being mugged on the internet. You know, if you're mugged in the high street, you have the bruises to show it. When it's done by fraud, you have no bruises.
So what can we do to protect ourselves against the holiday fraudsters?
First of all, do some research. Put the name of the company or the individual you're dealing with into a search engine, because chances are if they're trying to scam you, they've scammed other people as well. Always look for the logo. Look for membership of a reputable trade association such as APTA. Or if you're booking a package holiday involving a flight, then check that the company has an air travel organiser licence, an ATOL licence. Pay either by credit card, because you're then covered by the Consumer Credit Act, in which case your bank would have to refund you. The worst way to pay, though, is to pay by bank transfer directly into a private individual's bank account, because if that person turns out to be a crook, it's a bit like you've handed cash to a total stranger, and it's virtually impossible to get that money back if there's a problem.
So, following a few simple rules can help ensure you don't get caught out by the holiday fraudsters. All you need to worry about then is the weather.
Well, if you want to take another look at Martin's report or need some more advice, then just head to our website. Still to come, the brutal murder of a university student on her way to lectures in Colchester. And how a forensic artist helped police in an otherwise baffling case.
The body can be in a totally different state depending on when they were found, where they were found, what had happened to them. So I altered the image to try and show a realistic interpretation of him.
But first, Matthew has got a roundup of the latest crime news.
A convicted drug dealer who claimed he couldn't afford health care in his native United States has won his fight to stay in the UK. Johnny Calley from Ipswich was jailed for 7 years in 2007 for conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine. He'd been fighting deportation on the grounds both he and his partner rely on free NHS care. The Home Office said it was disappointed by the ruling and have appealed. Now, can you help in the search for the Holy Grail? A wooden cup or chalice known as an Anteos cup was stolen from a house in Herefordshire between the 7th and 14th of July. The priceless artefact was believed by some to be the Holy Grail, but has since been proved to be made some 1,500 years after the crucifixion. Well, officers from West Mercia Police are in the studio tonight, ready to take your calls. If you can help to track it down, get in touch now. Finally, a fugitive may have been on the run in Sheffield, but that didn't stop him from finding the time to find police guilty of criminal inaccuracy. Burglar Daryl Burberry got in touch with his local newspaper, The Star, after South Yorkshire police said they believed he could be heading for his home in Heeley. Well, in his handwritten letter, he said, "You couldn't be further from the truth. My home roots are the Manor Estate of Sheffield." Well, Burberry, who's since been apprehended, also wrote his phone number down before thinking better of it and scribbling it out.
Now, in our last programme, we appealed for your help to catch the killer of James Atfield. You remember that James was murdered in a brutal knife attack in Colchester that happened at the end of March. He had been stabbed 102 times. Well, only a few weeks after our appeal, Saudi Arabian student Nahid Al-Mania was also murdered in Colchester. The 31-year-old's body was found a mere 2 miles from where James was killed. Nahid had been on her way to a lecture at the University of Essex when she was stabbed 16 times. Well, DCI Lucy Morris, who's leading the investigation into Nahid's murder, joins me now. It's going to be very difficult for Crimewatch viewers not to listen to those two cases and somehow think that they are linked. What would you say to that?
We hadn't ruled out that possibility, but there's no definitive evidence linking the two murders. They remain separate investigations, but run in parallel.
OK, so tell me what you do know about Nahid and what happened to her.
Well, at 10:37 in the morning on Tuesday the 17th of June, a member of the public found Nahid's body on a footpath off Avon Way in Colchester. They called for an ambulance, but unfortunately they couldn't save her. As you say, she'd been stabbed 16 times. Now, we are pursuing a number of different theories, but there's no clear motive, and she doesn't appear to have had anything stolen.
The depth of this tragedy surely lies in the fact that usually she would have made this walk with her brother. You have CCTV of her and her last movements. Just talk us through that.
Yes, that's right. The Salary Brook Trail is a pathway commonly used by students walking to the nearby campus. That morning she would have left her home address at Woodrow Way in Colchester, walked down Stanley Woodrow Way and cutting through the shops at Hunrick Road. And it's here that we see the last CCTV image of her at 10:19. She's seen wearing her hijab headscarf.
Now, you said 10:37 was when her body was found. As you've described it and where it is, it surely must have been a very busy part of the world, this.
That's right. There's a number of people we still need to identify. We're particularly keen to trace a male seen wearing a distinctive beige jacket, similar to this one. Now, he's described as a male of late teens to early 30s, about 5'6" tall, of average build with short dark hair.
DCI Morris, I should mention to people watching that you're also very keen to trace students who are no longer at the university but would be familiar and would have used this area. You also want to tell us just very briefly about a reward.
Yes, that's right. For both investigations, there's a reward of £10,000 for any information leading to an arrest and conviction of those persons responsible.
OK, DCI Morris, thank you very much for updating us on that. There is clearly at least one extremely dangerous person out there who needs to be caught, and fast. If you can help with either of these investigations, I would urge you to do the right thing and to get in touch with us using the numbers on the screen. Let's go to Martin.
We start the Wanted Faces with an urgent appeal from officers in Humberside who need to trace John Heald after a hotel landlady in Bridlington was murdered last week. 53-year-old Heald, who also goes by the names John Davis or John King, has links to South Yorkshire and usually wears a diamond stud earring. He has a variety of tattoos, including a horse and dots on the knuckles of his left hand, and birds, a mermaid and an eagle on his right arm. There's a £5,000 reward for information leading to his arrest, but he's considered dangerous, so if you see him, call 999. Next is Cesar Florea. Detectives are looking for the Romanian national in connection with the attempted rape of a woman in North Ormsby in Middlesbrough last month. During the attack, the victim was so badly beaten she suffered a broken nose, a broken shoulder, and her arm was fractured in 3 places. This CCTV shows Florea just before the attack. As you can see, he has a very distinctive gait. The 25-year-old has links to London and Romania and has previously worked in car washes. The third is Adebayo Ekan. He's wanted in connection with the murder of 18-year-old Marcus Hall, who died after a violence erupted outside a nightclub in Luton in 2001. Ekan, who's either 37 or 38, has links to West London, the West Midlands and to Ghana. He uses a number of aliases, including James Dalvin, Dave Bell and Gary Plummer, and has a round burn mark and a large scar on the back of his left hand, as well as a 2-inch scar on his right forearm. He's also considered to be dangerous, so call the police immediately if you know where he is. There's a £5,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Lastly for now is Kieran Simpson. He was part of a gang who racially abused and assaulted a taxi driver inside his cab. The attack caused the driver to lose control of the car and smash into a set of railings. 22-year-old Simpson has links to Liverpool and Sussex. He shouldn't be approached again, just call 999. Now, all the faces are on the website. If you know where they are, call and text the numbers on screen. Texts will be charged at your standard message rate.
Next, Devon and Cornwall police need your help to solve a mystery. In February, a man's naked body was washed up on Perranporth Beach on Cornwall's north coast. There were some signs of possible drowning, but police are still treating the death as suspicious.
It was a dog walker who made the grim discovery. A man's body was found washed up here, naked, apart from socks and one shoe. This beautiful beach, which is famous for its surf, was suddenly a crime scene. For the police, it triggered an investigation into a death which 5 months on is still a mystery.
As well as some signs of drowning, the man also had significant injuries to his chest and to his head and hand. Bizarrely, he also had white headphones looped around a sock, which was in his mouth.
We didn't have anything to go on at all, really. We had a body washed up on the beach. We didn't have any clothes or identification. We didn't know where he'd gone in. We didn't know how long he'd been in the water even. So it was a really challenging investigation right from the start. We are used to having bodies washed up on the beach being a coastal area. This was very different, though.
And instantly suspicious.
Suspicious by the very nature of the conditions he was found in. Why would you have a sock in your mouth? It's not a usual way of finding a body on the beach.
The Coast Guard had also attended the crime scene in response to the initial 999 call.
Matt, in a situation like this, what are the first things that the Coast Guards are actually considering?
Well, our prime concern is search and rescue, so we'd be worried about if there's anybody else in difficulties, whether someone's fallen off a boat, whether a boat has sunk, whether it's a group or an individual in difficulties on the coast.
The key to this investigation is obviously working out when and where he got into the water. There are so many variables, aren't there?
It ranges on a whole load of factors. It can be the weather, it can be the sea conditions, the build of the person. If you and I went in the sea at the same time, there's no way we'd end up in the same place purely because of the difference in the way we're built.
Police searched the beach. They found a rucksack and a shoe which matched the one the man was wearing.
A dark jacket had also been washed up onto the beach. It contained a wallet with £95 cash, but no bank cards, and just this photo of a young boy. On the back it was dated 1952. It wasn't much to go on.
Police released the photo of the boy to the public in the hope that someone would recognise it. No one came forward. Detectives also contacted a forensic artist to create an impression of the man's face.
I produced the image for them, a sanitised image basically of the deceased. Obviously the body can be in a totally different state depending on when they were found, where they were found, what had happened to them. In this particular case, he wasn't wearing any clothes, his eyes were shut, various minor injuries to his face and so on. So I altered the image to try and show a realistic interpretation of him.
The image was released to the public a week after the body had been found. Within an hour, police had a name. A family member recognised and identified him as 64-year-old Alan Geel from Wadebridge, around 25 miles north of Perranporth.
Seeing the artist's impression, which was fantastically accurate, you know, we knew it was Alan. It's kind of numbing, really, I think, more than anything else. It is really upsetting that, you know, his life should come to an end like that, in circumstances which we don't understand. It makes it sort of doubly difficult.
With a formal identity, detectives were able to start to piece together Alan's life. He'd spent the majority of his time in Cornwall and had a passion for the outdoors and surfing. For years, he'd lived alone in a beach hut in Polzeath before moving to a flat in Wadebridge 10 years ago.
He's a really quiet guy. He was intelligent. I mean, he never had a huge sort of circle of friends. He really was quite happy with a very simple way of life.
Police now knew who he was and that the boy in the photo was Alan. But it still didn't explain how he came to be washed up on the beach. CCTV shows Alan on Monday the 24th of February, the day before his body was found. He withdrew money from a bank in Wadebridge. Then, that evening, it's thought he made 3 bus journeys. From Wadebridge to Truro, about 25 miles away. From Truro to Newquay, a route which would have taken him through Perranporth. From Newquay, he's thought to have caught the bus back again towards Perranporth.
We do know where he was and how he got to Perranporth, but that in itself still raises questions. We still don't know why he got on a bus that went through Perranporth and got off it in Newquay and walked up and down Newquay Street and got back on a bus to come back to Perranporth.
This final CCTV then shows him in the town at around 10:30. The last known sighting of him alive.
The CCTV was a real breakthrough. It showed us the route he'd taken, it showed us which buses he'd got on, and it showed us which towns he'd walked around. And ultimately, it did show us that he'd got back to Perranporth that evening.
What did it not tell you?
It still gave us a large window of time between when we last saw him on the CCTV and when he was found on the beach the next day. And that's still the mystery for us. Did he meet anyone? Did he see anyone? What was he doing during those last few hours? We still don't know that.
And DCI Dave Thorne is here now leading the investigation, of course, and still being considered by you as a suspicious death.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, he had a sock rolled up in his mouth with headphones around the back of it, and we have to treat that as suspicious. He also had injuries we couldn't explain, but really, ultimately, he had a sock rolled up in his mouth, which is very unusual.
Tell us what help, then, Crimewatch viewers can be tonight.
Alan lived a solitary life. He didn't have any close contacts. We need to know whether people had contact with him. We need to know whether people met him, particularly on that evening.
DCI Thorne, will you just take us through that CCTV again, just to give viewers another chance to take a look at it? Where and when?
Alan took a bus to Truro. He arrived at Truro about 6:15. This is him getting off the bus. He walks around Truro for a little while before getting another bus to Newquay. This is him in Newquay. At about 8:15, he's had to travel past Perranporth, but he then gets another bus back to Perranporth, which is him there, seen at about 10:30.
Yeah, so does anybody remember seeing him on that evening? Just quickly take us through the journey here.
So he's taken the bus from Wadebridge down to Truro. From Truro, he then goes via Perranporth to Newquay, gets off, gets another bus back to Perranporth.
We thought it looked like a light jacket. In fact, you recovered a dark jacket on the beach.
The jacket on the beach was much darker than the one seen in CCTV. We want to know whose jacket that was, where that's come from.
OK, Dave, for now, thank you very much indeed. If you can shed any light at all on what happened to Alan, please do get in touch using the usual numbers on the screen. Or, of course, you can speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers. They're on 0800 555 111. And if you yourself have been a victim of crime, there is the Victim Support Line. Their number, 0845 30 30 900.
Now, it's just over 4 years since this man suffered a truly horrific death in North London. Kester David was found burnt to death on the 7th of July 2010. His distraught family, including his 80-year-old mother, have been left in limbo since his death. Well, DCI Noel McHugh is here with me. And Noel, tell me more about the circumstances surrounding this death.
7th of July 2010, Kester David's body was discovered in a railway arch at the rear of Travis Perkins, which is Bloomfield Lane, Palmer's Green, North London. He'd suffered from burns and smoke inhalation. We know at 4:20 a.m. is when the incident most likely happened because CCTV picked up a bright light.
Now, you've built up a picture of his life. Tell me what we found.
Kester David was a part-time bus driver. He worked for Arriva, working from the Wood Green depot. His passion was DJing on the soccer and calypso scene, and people would have known him as DJ Bain.
Now, you have some very important CCTV. Just take me through it.
Yes, at 9 p.m. on the night before Kester was discovered, so that would be the 6th of July, he attended the Texaco petrol station on Lordship Lane. He had a jerry can which he filled with petrol. He went away. 20 minutes later, he returned with his white Ford Transit van. He put petrol in the van, it broke down, he called the RAC and he left at about 11 p.m. Then at 3:23 a.m. in the morning, a male attends the petrol station and purchases petrol in a fuel can and then walks off towards Green Lanes, and the male is then seen at 3:55 a.m. in the morning. Now, Kester David's family have viewed that male at 3:23 and 3:55 a.m. and they say that that is not Kester. So we need to know who is that male.
Now, his mobile phone was used in the weeks after his death, wasn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Kester had a BlackBerry Curve mobile phone. It's never been recovered. On July the 14th and 15th in the Wood Green shopping centre area, it was used, and then on the 22nd of July near Whittington Hospital it was used. The caller will, or the user will recall that they were unable to make any calls because the phone was locked. So who made those calls and where is Kester's phone now?
Finally, someone has been in contact with your team. You are desperate that person gets in contact again, aren't you?
Yes, we were contacted by an individual using the name Sharon. Sharon clearly holds important information and claims to know who is responsible for Kester's death. So Sharon, please make contact.
Detective, thanks very much. It is a terribly sad case, and Kester's family are understandably desperate to know what happened. If you saw anything unusual in that area that night or know of any reason why anyone would have wanted to harm Kester, please pick up the phone.
So still to come, how counter-terrorism officers foiled a white supremacist determined to kill.
My dad was 82 years old, could never ever have defended himself.
Убийство было совершено по мотивам расовой.
A murder was committed on the basis of racial hatred.
But first, Martin has more wanted faces.
We start this time with Lamonas Sapuskas, who's wanted after he failed to turn up at court to stand trial for GBH with intent after a man was attacked by a gang armed with a crowbar and a hammer. The 41-year-old has links to Lithuania, the West Midlands, Somerset and South Wales. He's a big chap at 6'4" and is described as being of extremely heavy build. Next is Darren Byrne, although police aren't convinced that's his real name. He's wanted in connection with a conspiracy to supply drugs worth more than £5.5 million. The 31-year-old has connections to Dublin and Liverpool. Number 7 tonight is Nijio Habib. The 44-year-old is wanted in connection with an incident during which bullets were fired and a hand grenade thrown at a house in Essex. Habib, who has connections to Ilford, London and Birmingham, has a small scar on the side of his nose and is described as having a London accent. He also goes by the names Claudio Mohammed or just Jimmy. And finally we have Nigel Anthony Rowell. But he uses lots of other names, including Nick Rowe and Nigel or Nicholas Powell. Detectives want to speak to him about a series of burglaries and thefts, the most recent of which saw 3 guns, thousands of pounds worth of computer equipment and a Land Rover stolen from a small business in Devon where Rowell had been working. The 49-year-old has links to Weston-super-Mare, Blackpool, Birmingham, Bournemouth and throughout Devon. Rowell, who has a Brummie accent, should not be approached. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. They're all on the website and available on the red button until midnight.
Now, updates on some appeals that we've featured, and in March we brought you the case of 36-year-old Simon Holdsworth, who was killed as he made his way home from work in Sheffield. Happened just before Christmas. Well, 2 weeks ago, 45-year-old Sean Wainwright of Dagenham Road in Sheffield was charged with Simon's murder. He is currently on remand and will appear in court again in November. We'll update you on that when we can.
We can also bring you the latest on the murder of Jean Campbell. The 53-year-old died after being attacked while walking her dog near her home in Glasgow in December. Well, this morning, a 21-year-old man from Glasgow was committed for trial, accused of Jean's murder. He was remanded in custody.
Now, many of you will remember this face. Elaine Doyle was just 16 when she was murdered after a night out in the small Scottish town of Greenock back in 1986. Well, in 2011, we reconstructed her last movements and appealed for your help to find her killer. Well, the following year, 49-year-old John Doherty from Greenock was arrested after his DNA was found to match that taken from the scene. And last month, Doherty was convicted of Elaine's murder. Sadly, Elaine's father, Jack, died before he saw her killer convicted. Doherty will be sentenced next month.
The last of our CCTV now, starting with a chilling attack on a woman in Manchester city centre just before Christmas. A woman is walking to work early on a Sunday morning. Just behind her is a man with his hood pulled up. As she walks, he quickens his pace to keep up with her. He follows her for a while along Deansgate. As they cross Tonman Street, he catches up with her and tackles her to the ground. He then sexually assaults her. Police think the same man attacked another woman in the same area around 30 minutes beforehand. On that occasion, the cameras get a clear shot of his face. A predatory sex attacker. We need him off the streets tonight. Name, please. A residential street in Dean in Bolton on a Wednesday morning in May. A bloke in a hoodie is hanging around. As he wanders into the road, a 79-year-old woman who's walking home after collecting her prescription passes behind him. Another man follows the old lady into the lane. He walks behind the pensioner as she slowly makes her way down the alley towards her back gate, while the man in the hoodie stands guard. As the lady takes out her key, he grabs her handbag, the force pulling her violently to the floor. The thieving pair then run off with the bag. These lowlives robbed an elderly woman. Now, the images aren't great, but the victim did say the men spoke in a foreign language. If you know who they are, please tell us their names. Inside a busy convenience store in Hemel Hempstead on a Friday morning in May. As the female cashier finishes serving one customer, a man in an extremely high-tech disguise walks in. Look, it's even got eye holes. But despite his comedy appearance, he's not messing around. Behind the counter, he pulls out a knife and threatens the woman, who opens the cash drawer for him. He grabs the notes from the till before calmly walking out past a couple of school children. Now we need your help to bag this random robber tonight. He may be masked, but someone knows who he is. If you can name anyone featured in tonight's CCTV, please get in touch. And of course, you can take another look on the website.
The ever-present threat of terrorism is, sadly these days, a harsh reality for all of us. Imagine, if you will, the possibility of a terrorist on the loose setting off a series of bombs, each just a week apart. Well, it happened last summer in the West Midlands. The explosions were timed to hit worshippers attending Friday prayers in mosques. And it was clear the bomber wouldn't stop until he was caught. But with a population of over 5.5 million, how do police track down a lone wolf?
It's a real nightmare scenario. We just didn't know who was behind this. We just had to find that bomber before the next bomb went off.
At 1 p.m. on the 12th of July last year, a bomb packed with nails exploded at this mosque here in Tipton. It was a Friday when mosques are at their busiest, and it was the third such bombing in a matter of weeks. If that pattern continued, the counter-terrorism teams had just 7 days before the next attack. With over 200 mosques as potential targets, their task was huge.
The 3 bombs had all been detonated in the West Midlands. The first in Walsall, followed by Wolverhampton, and now Tipton. It was only good fortune no one had yet been killed.
We knew that the next bomb was a real high risk to life, so it was imperative for us to catch the person or the people that were responsible for it.
With over 200 mosques in the region as possible targets, detectives had to work fast. They began by examining CCTV from the first bombing in Walsall.
We really had to find the person quickly. We needed to get that crucial image of our bomber. What we're looking at there is CCTV around the Walsall Mosque of anyone carrying an object into and then coming out of the mosque without an object. We didn't know whether the person put the bomb there an hour before or 3 days or 4 days before for those times.
That must have been an enormous amount.
Yeah, there's thousands of hours worth of CCTV.
After following dozens of potential suspects on CCTV, the trawl finally revealed one man whose suspicious actions stood out. The white man in dark clothing was seen carrying a bag outside the mosque just before the explosion.
The key then was to follow that person on a number of CCTV cameras, just trying to find that clue to who that person was, where they lived, so we could identify and arrest them as quickly as possible.
As well as the CCTV images of the suspect, detectives had one other significant lead. The remnants of one of these, a child's lunchbox used to conceal the first bomb.
Having now pinpointed the main suspect, next they needed to trace his journey to the mosque. After following his route in reverse on dozens of cameras, they finally got a clear image of his face, and he was carrying a green Asda bag. detectives were convinced the lunchbox containing the bomb was inside that bag.
We went to the local Asda in Small Heath with the Asda bag and found out when they'd sold those bags during that day, and we found the CCTV for each of those transactions. At that point then we found our bomber had bought the green Asda bag, but crucially had also bought child's lunchbox. That child's lunchbox contained the bomb.
And crucially, you could see his face this time.
Absolutely, that was a real crucial moment. We had two clear images, one from the bus, one from Asda, of our bomber's face. What we had to do then was put a name to the face and arrest him as quickly as possible, certainly before the next Friday.
Those images were immediately given to police officers on the ground, but with Friday prayers fast approaching, it seemed as if the man was simply a ghost.
All clear on Albert Street.
The absolute pressure on us there is to put a name to the bomber and actually arrest him. Let's get him off the streets before any more bombs are set. We did that by putting those images through to the media, and we thought then we'd get lots of phone calls saying this is his name. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Understandably, the community were concerned, mosques were concerned about their congregations, and it was absolutely imperative that we found this person before next Friday, because we knew there's a high risk of another bomb being planted.
It appeared the bomber was an expert at keeping a low profile. The press appeal didn't lead to a single phone call.
We then went to tried and tested police work, both detectives and local neighbourhood officers armed with these images of the bomber in the Small Heath area. We knew he shopped at Asda, we thought he lived close by, so then we visited every business, offices, shops in that area.
With just a day to spare, the old-fashioned detective work paid off.
Do you recognise him?
Two neighbourhood sergeants, armed with the photographs, went to a small industrial estate and showed the photographs. A person there recognised him as a foreign student that was working within their offices.
We need to speak to him right now.
And there was Pavlo Lapshin, there was our bomber, and he was arrested.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of causing explosions. No.
We knew that the person we'd been searching on CCTV for so long was finally in custody. We still had more work to do. We didn't know whether he was working alone or with other people, but we knew that person we'd painstakingly found on CCTV. We knew we'd finally got him.
24-year-old Lapshin was a student from the Ukraine who'd come to Britain to study at Coventry University and got work experience at a local engineering company. He'd been in the country for 90 days, but was staying in a flat on the industrial estate and hadn't socialised with anyone.
And when you interviewed him, I mean, what was he like?
He almost seemed proud of what he'd done, and he talked about he wanted to start a race war. He wanted to have a wave of terrorism by planting these bombs.
Officers weren't convinced these were Lapshin's only crimes. He was a self-confessed racist targeting Muslim sites, and their attention quickly turned to the unsolved murder of an elderly Muslim man just a few months earlier.
Almost a month ago.
In May last year, Crimewatch featured an appeal to catch the killer of 82-year-old Mohammed Salim. The grandfather had been stabbed to death while walking home from his regular evening prayers in Birmingham. Grainy CCTV showed a white man running away from the scene. Although at the time of the murder he'd only been in the country a matter of days, detectives suspected Lapshin could have been responsible for Mohammed's death.
And what did he say at that stage when you asked him about that murder?
Once he was arrested for the murder, again, he admitted it straight away.
Убийство было совершено по мотивам расовой ненависти.
Murder was committed on the basis of racial hatred.
He said he took a knife out with him. He wandered around an area looking for an opportunity to kill a non-white person, as he called him. He walked past the mosque, expecting Muslim people to be at the mosque. And Mr. Salim was leaving the mosque, walking home, and tragically his path crossed Pavlo Lapshin, who had a murderous intent, who took that opportunity and killed him.
Mohammed Salim's family will never come to terms with Pavlo Lapshin's random, murderous act.
This man, Pavlo, came into the country. He'd been here, what, 2 days, 3 days before he struck and he killed my father. So he came with the intent of killing a Muslim man, and he picked my father. And Pavlo is a strapping young man, and, you know, my dad was 82 years old, could never ever have defended himself. And to, you know, kill him the way that he did, and my dad suffered the way that he did when he died, it's just unforgivable, and the impact that it's had on the family and the grandchildren.
Mohammed Salim was Pavlo Lapshin's only victim, but he had intended for his campaign of terror to last much longer.
In his room we found other bombs ready to go. We knew he would have carried on if he had not been stopped. I think he's an extremely evil but misguided individual. He's influenced by right-wing ideology. Came to Birmingham, killed a defenceless elderly gentleman and caused real fear and concern amongst the whole community with his bombing campaign, and rightfully he's behind bars.
All that horror and havoc, and he'd only been in the country, what, 3 months?
Yeah, this was a man who boasted he wanted to start a race war. It was only because he got the time wrong for Friday prayers that no one was killed in that nail bomb in Tipton. I mean, he saw the bomb factory in his flat. This was just the start. He also wanted to taunt police about who killed Mohammed Salim. He'd written anonymous notes which he planned to send.
And definitely acting alone?
Yes, they went to Ukraine, they analysed his phones, his computers to see if he was part of a cell or a right-wing group. He was a loner, but the computers were packed with white supremacist material driving his hate. There was also this video of him testing one of his early bombs. It's worth seeing.
I mean, that is really shocking force there. What about sentencing?
He got life with a minimum of 40 years. The judge said that his views were abhorrent to all right-thinking people. Mohammed Salim's daughter said the family just simply couldn't move on. She said the murder had disabled their minds in every emotional way possible. Really heartbreaking.
Thanks, Matthew. Just time now for a quick update on tonight's calls. Here's Martin.
We've had some great calls come in on one of our main appeals tonight, the death of Robert Hart following the Parklife Festival in Manchester. Remember, detectives wanted possible witnesses to come forward and identify themselves. Several of those have done that, and we've had possible 20 names for that suspect.
OK, that's everything for now. But remember, all of tonight's appeals are online. The phone lines, they're going to stay open until midnight tomorrow. And we're going to be back again tonight at 10:40 after the news with the latest on what we hope will have been, I think it has been, a busy night. Viewers in Northern Ireland are going to have to wait a little longer. Our next full programme is going to be in September, when we'll be marking 30 years of Crimewatch.
If you've ever worried or complained about crime, this is your chance to do something about it.
The Brighton bomb inquiry.
The murder of 2-year-old James Bulger.
A year ago today, Lynn Russell, her daughters Josie and Megan were waylaid and then slaughtered.
By calling here, you can make a difference.
Now, we ask you to cast your preconceptions aside and to do what you can to help find Madeleine McCann. Well, full details of our special 30th anniversary will be available near the time. But for now, from everyone here, your calls do make a difference. Thank you and goodbye.